Hello students, we are doing atoms, elements and compounds. So we are on part 4 now of subtopic atomic structure and periodic table. So let's see what we are going to take up in this part 4. Part 4 is structure of atom. So in this video we are going to study about that what is the exact structure of atom. That means how protons, electrons and neutrons are arranged inside the atom. See, in order to study the structure of atom, there were many volunteers who actually proposed the structure. Like there was J.J. Thomson who proposed Plum's pudding model. There was, you can say, another Rutherford who proposed Rutherford model of an atom. But the well-accepted model was given by this young scientist, that is Niels Bohr. That is Niels Bohr. So Niels Bohr was the one who actually focused on the drawbacks of other models and proposed a model which is accepted worldwide. So according to him, that atom is electrically neutral. That is, atom is somewhat like this and it is electrically neutral. That is, the number of protons and electrons inside the atom are equal. That is, there is no net charge on an atom. Neither it is positive nor negative. It is neutral in nature. He said that in center of atom there is a nucleus. So if this is an atom, so it has a nucleus, a small dense body inside it, that is nucleus. So according to Niels Bohr, nucleus is there in center. In nucleus, subatomic particles, protons and neutrons are present. So if I draw nucleus here, so in nucleus we have protons and we do have neutrons in it. We know that protons carry positive charge as said by Niels Bohr, and neutron carries no charge. They only contribute towards the mass. Outside the nucleus there are shells. So if we have nucleus like this, let's say this is nucleus. So outside the nucleus we have shells like this. We have shells like this. And these shells are named as either 1, 2, 3 so on, or this 1 and 2 can be replaced by K, L, M, N so on. So there are shells which are present around the nucleus. And these shells are called as energy levels, or they are called as orbits. They are called as orbits and they are present around the nucleus. In shells, electrons revolve. In shell, electrons revolve and electrons are negatively charged. So in these shells, there are definite number of electrons present and they are revolving in it, and electrons, as we know, are negatively charged. So whenever you are using a symbol of electron, we just write like this because this indicates E as electron, in negative that it is negatively charged. Now each shell has fixed amount of energy. That is the reason they are referred as energy levels, because they have fixed energy. And whenever electron is there in its shell, it never loses nor gains energy on its own when it is in its own shell. So like we have nucleus and we have, like, say this is K shell and there is an electron revolving in it, it will itself neither lose or gain energy on its own. So these were the postulates. There was one important postulate also. So the question is now that how many electrons will be there in any shell. So the shells are randomly filled or there are certain specified electrons that can be present. So yes, according to Niels Bohr, the number of electrons in each shell is given by a specific rule, that is Bohr-Bury rule. So according to him, like this is nucleus if I say, and these are the shell. Let's say this is K shell. Let's say this is K shell. This is L shell, right? So in the shells, there are specific number of electrons present which are given by Bohr-Bury rule, which is 2n square. Like if I want to know that how many maximum number of electrons can be accommodated in first shell, that is K shell. So it can be calculated as by putting n as 1 So the maximum number of electrons that can be accommodated in K shell is 2. Likewise, if I want to know for L shell, I can put N as 2 because L is the second shell. So the maximum number is 8. So likewise, I can calculate for M, I can calculate by N by putting this N as 1, 2, 3 depending upon for which shell we are actually calculating. So the Neil Bohr atomic model can be well represented like this. That is, this is the nucleus, and the nucleus possesses protons and neutrons, positively and no charge, right? And around it we have shells. Shells can be first or K shell, second or L, M, and so on. And in shells, the electrons are filled according to Bohr-Bury rule, which is 2n squared. So in first shell, the maximum electrons can be 2. It can be less than 2, but not more than 2. In second, it will be 8. In third, it will be 18, and so on. It can be calculated for other shells. The next thing which we are going to study is electronic configuration. So now you have seen that we have nucleus and we have shells, and in shells there are specific number of you can say the electrons which are present. So now how the electrons are distributed in any shell, how the electrons are distributed in other shells, that is called as electronic configuration. So in a simple language we can say electronic configuration is the arrangement of electrons in different shells. For example, if I say helium, so atomic number of helium is 2. So that means protons are also 2 and electrons are also 2. So how I'm going to write the electronic configuration for these electrons? So it has 2 electrons, and we know that the first shell can accommodate maximum of 2 electrons. So for this case, electronic configuration is going to be just 2. Let's say if I have an example of sodium. We know atomic number is 11. We also know protons are 11. We know electrons are 11. So how we are going to arrange these 11? So it will be somehow, in the first shell can accommodate maximum of 2. So let's subtract 2 out of 11. So this is 2. Second shell can accommodate maximum of 8 electrons. We have already calculated from 2n square, right? So we'll subtract 8 electrons, or you can say we can pick the 8 electrons out of these and can be placed in the second shell. So now it becomes 10. We are still left with 1. So we'll put in the other shell. So the electronic configuration will be 2, 8, 1. And also remember that when you are writing the electrons in different shell, you need to put commas in order to indicate that this is the another shell, this is the other shell, and this is again the other shell. Likewise, if I need to write an electronic configuration, let's say for silicon, the atomic number is 14, the protons are also 14, the electrons are also 14. So that means we need to arrange 14 electrons in different shells. So we can arrange 2 in the first, next we can arrange 8, becomes 10, we are left with 4, and 4 can go in the third shell because third shell can accommodate maximum of 18 electrons. So it becomes 2, 8, 4. So this is how you're going to write the electronic configuration for different atoms, but for writing it you have to remember the atomic number, protons and the electrons. Then only you can write the configuration. Next term which we are going to study is the valency. Now see, like if I write, if I ask you to write the electronic configuration of sodium, we know electrons are 11. So electronic configuration is 2, 8, 1. So do you think that this sodium is stable? See, stability means, what do you mean by stability? Stability is a condition, right? When there is no such repulsive force inside the nucleus, or you can say somehow the structure is stable. So here in this case, the stability of atom is confined to noble gas configuration. It is confined to noble gas configuration. Noble gas configuration is somehow stable configuration. So what do you mean by noble gas configuration? Noble gas configuration means the atom should possess only those shells which possess the maximum electrons in it. That means they should be fully filled. They should be fully filled, or they can be half filled also. But at your standard, like in this standard, you need to know just about the full filled concept. So the noble gas is the one which has complete shell, which has complete the shells. That means the number of shells which are present should be complete. They should accommodate the maximum of electrons which can they accommodate actually according to Bohr-Bury rule. So if you focus on sodium, you will see that the first shell can accommodate 2 and it is already having the 2. So it is stable. Second shell can accommodate maximum of 8 and still it is possessing 8. That means this shell is also stable. But the third shell is having only 1 electron. And as per rule, it should have 18 electrons. It should have 18 electrons. So that means this is somehow not stable. So what it will do, or in order to attain stability, how it can actually attain? It can either accept 7 electrons. It can either accept in 7 electrons, and by accepting it will become 2, 8, 8, and the third shell will be complete. See, I have told you that it can accommodate maximum of 18. But at your standard, when we are filling the electrons, we will fill the third shell as 8. And what is the reason behind? You will learn in higher standard, right? So for this movement, you need to know that if the third shell is possessing 8 electrons, it becomes stable. It acquires a noble gas configuration. So by accepting 7, it becomes 8. That means it acquired noble gas configuration. Or the other way out can be that it can lose its 1 electron, and after losing it will form 2, 8, and again these 2 shells will be stable. So what is going to be easier? What will be easier? Obviously losing 1 electron will be more easy, because the number of electrons it is going to lose is just 1, and the number of electrons which it is going to accept will be 7. So obviously the small number is much easier. So that means it will lose 1 electron. So as it is losing 1 electron, its valency becomes 1. Its valency becomes 1. But the valencies are described in terms of positive and negative terms. So because it is losing 1 electron, its valency will be plus 1. Now what is the reason? See, sodium has atomic number 11. That means protons are 11 and electrons are 11. But when it is losing its 1 electron, now the electrons will become 10, right? And the atom is now the atom will become an ion, right? Because protons and electrons will no longer remain same. So in this case, 1 positive charge will be more. 1 proton is more in an atom. That means 1 positive charge is going to be more for an atom. That is the reason whenever any atom loses an electron, its valency is written in positive, because number of protons get increased in comparison to electron. So in this case, the number of protons will be 11 and for electron it is 10. So that means 1 positive charge is increasing. So that is the reason we are writing as plus 1. Similarly, if you have magnesium, so electronic configuration is 282. It will lose 2 electrons. So in that case, the protons will exceed by 2 charges. So its valency is going to be plus 2. So the valency depends upon the valence electrons, and if the valence electrons are 1, 2 or 3, so it is always preferred to lose these electrons. So the valency is always plus 1, plus 2 or plus 3. But if the valence electrons are 4, 5, 6 and 7, right, then it is easier to accept electron, right? So in this case, the valency is going to be minus 1 for 7, minus 2 for 6 valence electron and minus 3 for 5. And if we talk about the 4 valence electron 4, so it can lose also, it can gain also. So we can write its valency as plus minus 4. So that is like if I talk about carbon, it has valence electron 4. So its valency can be written as plus minus 4. It can prefer losing, it can prefer gaining, or when we'll study bonding, you'll see that it prefer sharing, right? So this is how you are going to write the valency. And if the valence electron is 8, that means the shell is complete. So in that case, the valency is going to be 0. And we have also seen that some elements possess fixed valency. Like if I talk about sodium, the valency is fixed, +1. But there are certain elements which have variable valency. That means they have 2 or more than 2 valencies. Like if I talk about iron, it possesses 2 valency, +1 also, and +2 also, and +3 also. Similarly, if I talk about copper, copper also possesses 2 valency, Cu plus and Cu2 positive. So it is always preferred to say as positive and negative instead of saying plus or minus. So there are certain elements which possess variable valencies. So what is the reason behind this variable valency? You will learn in higher standard. Next concept which we are taking is valence shell. So now you're familiar with the atomic number, protons, electrons, electronic configuration, right? So let us take one example. If I write for silicon, atomic number is 14, protons are also 14, electrons are also 14. So if I write its electronic configuration, it is going to be 284. So if I say how many shells are filled when I am writing the electronic configuration for silicon, I see that there are 3 shells, K, L and M. So the last shell is the valence shell. So if we are talking about any atom, write down the electronic configuration, name the shells. So the last shell corresponds to valence shell. So this is how you are going to make out that which is the valence shell in which given atom. Next term which we are taking is valence electrons. They are simply the electrons which are present in the last shell of an atom. Like in the above example, I took an example of silicon where the atomic number was 14, proton was 14, electron was 14. And what was the electronic configuration? It was 284. So in this you can see that this is the valence shell. The M1 is the valence shell. So the electrons which are present in the valence shell, only in the valence shell, I'm not talking about the total electrons, I'm not talking about the total electrons, I'm talking just about the valence shell electrons. They are called as valence electrons. Let's take one more example. If I write for magnesium, the configuration is 282 and valence shell is again M. So 2 is the valence electrons which are present in magnesium. So likewise, we can determine valency, valence electron, valence shell for different atoms. Let's do some question and answers. Draw atomic model for argon. So if you have to draw an atomic model, you have to write the name of the element. You have to specify its symbol. You have to write its atomic number and you have to write its electronic configuration, which is 288. Now let's draw a model. So this is nucleus and these are the shells. So I'm drawing 3 shells because when I wrote its electronic configuration, I saw that there are only 3 shells. So this is nucleus. 3 shells, so electrons are arranged 2 in this, 8 in this, and again 8 in this. And in nucleus, we'll have protons and neutrons. So let's see how many protons and neutrons. So atomic number is 18, that means protons are going to be 18. So I can write protons and nucleus is 18. And electrons are obviously going to be 18. This we have already filled. And what about the neutrons? For writing the neutrons, we need to remember the mass number. So mass number for argon is 40. So that means neutrons in it is somehow 40 minus 18, which comes out to be around 22. So neutrons are 22. So this is how you're going to draw atomic model for argon. Next question is, what is the valency for calcium? So in order to find out the valency, we have to write the configuration. Atomic number 20, configuration 2882, That means it is having 4 shells and fourth shell is not complete. So that means it will lose 2 electrons. As I told you, if an atom possesses 1, 2 or 3 valence electrons, its valency is +1, +2, +3 because it is easier to lose those electrons. So obviously in this case the valency is going to be +2. So this +2 is correct option. Third question is determine valence shell, valence electron of for hydrogen. So atomic number for hydrogen is 1. So if I write its electronic configuration, then also it is going to be 1. So what is asked? Valence shell and valence electrons. So valence shell is going to be just one shell. So valence shell asked is K, and valence electrons are the electrons which are present in valence shell, which is just 1. So this is how we are going to determine the valence shell and valence electrons for any atom like we did for hydrogen. Next question is, how many electrons can be accommodated in N shell of an atom? So we have shell K, L, M, N like this, right? So N is the fourth shell. So we can know that maximum number of electrons that it can accommodated by a rule, Bohr-Bury rule, that is 2n square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this N as 4. So what is the answer? This is 4 into 4, 16 into 2, 32. So 32 electrons are the maximum number of electrons that the N shell can accommodate. Next question is, on what factor the valency of an atom depends? Valence shell, valence electron, configuration or number of neutrons. We have already discussed that valency depends upon the valence electrons. Next topic which we are going to take up, isotopes. So what are isotopes? We have seen that there are certain elements which possess same atomic number but they have different mass number. For example, if I talk about hydrogen, hydrogen exists in nature in 3 forms, right? All are H with same atomic number but they have different mass number. So because they have different mass number, the relation they share, that is they are isotopes of each other. Likewise, for carbon we have carbon 6, atomic number is 6, but if we talk about the mass number, we get carbon of different mass numbers, that is carbon 12 and carbon 14. So though they possess same atomic number but different mass numbers, so that is the reason they share the relation that they are isotopic forms of carbon. So this is how you can write the isotopes for various elements. So let's see what is common between the isotopes and what is actually a difference that is shown between isotopes of the same element. So if I talk about the isotopes, let's say take an example of carbon. So I told you that carbon exists in 2 forms as carbon 12 and carbon 14. So what is already written is that they have same atomic number. You can see also, and we have done in the definition also. They have same atomic number. Now the atomic number is same, so obviously symbol for the element is going to be same. That is why it is C here and C also here. Third, atomic number is the number of protons. So that means if the atomic number is same, that means the protons are going to be same. We know that the protons and electrons are always equal for an atom. So if protons are same, that means the electrons are also going to be same. Now if electrons are same, obviously the configuration for both the forms is going to be same. Now the configuration is same, that means the valence shell, the valence electrons and also the valency is going to be same for all isotopic forms. So what is exactly the difference that is shown by the isotopes? It is just the difference in the mass number. Now you know that mass number is equal to proton plus neutron. And already discussed, I have told you that protons are same because atomic number is same. So what is the difference? Where is the difference? That is in the number of neutrons. So all the isotopic forms actually possess different number of neutrons. So this is what the difference that is shown by the isotopic forms of the same element. Now, the isotopes can be radioactive and they may be non-radioactive also. What do you mean by radioactive and non-radioactive? See, radioactive isotopes are those which have unstable nucleus. Their mass actually keeps on disintegrated in the form of rays, and they keep on emitting the harmful radiations like alpha, beta and gamma rays. Right? So they are actually very dangerous. But there are certain isotopes which are non-radioactive. They are not harmful to us, or they are not emitting any harmful rays. So accordingly, they have the specified uses. So let's see the uses of few isotopes. One is iodine 121. Here 121 is the mass number for the iodine. So iodine 121 is used in the treatment of goiter. So this is the goiter. This figure is indicating a person who is suffering from goiter. As you all know, goiter is a disease which occurs due to deficiency of iodine, and it is actually a disease in which the thyroid gland gets swelled up. So this is what is shown. So iodine 121 can be used in the treatment of goiter. Second is sodium 24. That is used in detecting the obstruction in the blood flow. If there is any obstruction in the blood flow in your body, that can be detected easily by using sodium 24 isotope. Uranium-235 is a nuclear fuel, and I should specify that uranium-235 is radioactive in nature, right? So actually you know that the nuclear fuel is used for the nuclear reactions, and nuclear reactions are similar to the atomic reactions, but nuclear reactions produce so much enormous energy that can be used to carry out various you can say the processes. But using a nuclear fuel or a radioactive substance can be harmful also if precautions are not taken. So uranium-235 is used in this nuclear reactor which is shown in the figure, that is used to carry out the nuclear reaction in a proper manner, and the energy used can be actually used for constructive purpose. Next, radioactive it is used in the treatment of cancer. Carbon-14, which is again a radioactive isotope of carbon, it is used for carbon dating, that is to know the age of fossils. So with this we finish this topic, that is the structure of atom. So thank you for watching this video, and for more learning experience you can visit to www.wasarax.com.